What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of On the Bluff. I'm your host, Christian Fowler. Joining me as a guest host this week is my guy, Kenny Stubblefield. Gabe had to attend to some business last minute, so it's me and Kenny.
No. Let's get it real. What really happened? Gabe realized how badly he lost the Caitlin Clark argument and said, man, I'm going to take a week off and let Kenny come in because he was so right about the conversation that I need to let him talk a little bit. So that's what happened, right?
Nope. Kenny's lying. That's not what happened.
I was so close.
That's not what happened. All right, Kenny. So me and you.
Feels like old times, man.
Feels like old times. You and Gabe got to do one of these a couple months ago. Now it's me and you rocking on here. So start how we always start with the weekend. How was it? Did you do anything fun, or was this just a pretty standard weekend?
Listen, it was a busy weekend. I got a chance to go to the 901 FC soccer game on Saturday night. And Christian,
nice.
I know you're a hermit and you don't like to come out of the house.
It's not true.
That's not true?
No,
okay.
You know that's not true.
But I'm telling you, man, like it's my first game I've had the chance to go to. I was there actually filming for 901 FC, got to film a dope engagement with some people in the Bluff City Mafia, which is pretty cool little, you know how in European soccer they have the hooligans that are like the loud, it's like everybody's a hooligan if you're a fan. Well, at Memphis, at 901 FC, they have the Bluff City Mafia, which are kind of the crazy rabid fan base of the 901 FC. And the head hooligan, one of the guys there, his nickname is Demon. He got engaged to his lovely fiance, now fiance, Callie, and it was dope. It was a fun experience, and I was describing it to somebody like, you go to a game like that, and it's a professional soccer league, so there's a lot like really good action on the field, like or on the pitch as they call it, but the environment is like high school / college fan base involvement where just rabid fans come and they all know the players know the fans. And it was just a really fun environment, man. It was a really cool time.
Yeah. Sounds like fun. Was that the first one you've been to? First
one I've ever gone to. I'm the hermit apparently in this crew.
I mean, I can't say I've attended, so
right.
I can't.
Well, we need to go. You need to bring Anna Ruth and y'all come on. We'll go. I'll bring Tracy. We'll go. We might invite Gabe and Taylor, but no, it was a good time, man. We had a really fun time.
Cool. Yeah. Weekend for me was decently standard. Friday night, me and Anna Ruth went on a date to one of our favorite restaurants, got a little steak. I did. She didn't. That was it. Friday night. Sorry. No, then we went and got ice cream afterwards. Then we went and met up with some friends afterwards.
Of course you did, because you are a night owl now, apparently.
No, I'm a hermit.
Yes, you're a hermit.
Right. And then Saturday, we had a wedding on Saturday night for some of her friends. So went to the wedding. Afterwards, went to dinner at Moon Dance with our parents. It was wonderful. That was my first time going.
Where is Moon Dance?
Like Germantown Parkway. In the show, it's close to where the old studio was. Like German, nice? Yeah, it's nice.
What kind of food is it?
A little bit of everything, steak, a little bit of seafood. So it's kind of got options there.
Moon Dance. That's your one free advertisement on the Bluff. Next time, you got to pay for that trash.
Yeah, that's the free shout out.
That's the free shout out.
So that was Saturday, and then Sunday just went to church, hung out by the pool after that. And that was about it. And
that kind of feels like your carbon copy weekend during the summertime, right?
It's pretty standard.
Yeah.
Pretty standard. This weekend I'll be going to the lake. Thank the Lord, it is finally that time for the lake trip. So
yeah,
you're gonna be just you and Gabe next week, because I'll be at the lake Saturday through Tuesday.
Well, funny part is I'm going to be at the beach next week.
Well, sounds
Sounds like it's going to be the Gabe Kuhn show again.
sounds like it's either going to be the Gabe Kuhn show or there's going to be no on the Bluff next week.
Yeah, we'll see. We haven't talked about it yet. I'm going to be at the beach, and there's how the Wi-Fi is there. Like I can barely download y'all's episodes enough to edit.
Every year when Kenny goes to the beach, it is a catastrophe with the Wi-Fi. It is not good.
Let me ask you this. So this might be, and Christian, like for just full transparency, Christian and I have worked together for years. Like he's been around for all the beach trips. This year might be our last year, bro.
Yeah.
10 years of going. And the reason why is it's in the Gulf, right? And so the water, the ocean was coming up underneath all the houses. And so that to fix it, like not only so the people who own the house that we stay in moved the house off the ocean last year, which is crazy because it's on stilts. So they have to cranes, pick it up, move it, replant the whatever the braces, the foundation back into the ground.
Wild.
There's one company in the entire Gulf that does it, and they do every one of them, and it is a lot of money. So they are loaded. Anyway, so they moved the house off the ocean, and it was still, and so then the Fish and Wildlife Game Reserve or whatever came in and said, we'll bring in like 100 million tons of sand and rebuild the beach, but we're going to push the ocean like 200 yards out further, rebuild that beach back up. And now you got to go across. You can't walk on the beach to get out to the water. You got to go across this really large bridge that they built now. And so it's like, not only have we moved the house off the beach, now the beach is 200 yards that way. And
so now it's become a pain in the butt, basically.
Now it's become a pain. And there's been because they've moved the ocean the way that they did, there's been a ton of shark sightings out there. And so I don't know, man. It's going to be a wild. If I don't come back, man, I love you and I'll miss you. And I might be eaten by a shark next week.
I think you'll be fine. But
okay.
Did you see the shark attacks this weekend?
Yes, dude. They shut 30A down for it. Yeah. And it's happening over where we're going to. So I don't know, man. I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be crazy.
Wild stuff. But yes, I know you're ready. I'm ready to go on vacation. I can't wait. If anybody's listened to me for any amount of time, this family lake trip is my favorite. It's
the highlight of the summer.
It is. So we finally made it to it. We'll be there Saturday through Tuesday. But anyway, Kenny, let's move on. Let's talk some Memphis sports. Let's start with Memphis basketball. I'm going to be honest. It's probably not going to be the longest Memphis basketball conversation we've ever had. And that's okay because it's that time of year.
Right.
But let's start it with Arthur Kaluma. We talked a little bit about him last week. Kansas State transfer, started his career at Creighton, ended up at Kansas State last year. Now back in the portal. Memphis still out in front for him. I know some people were possibly expecting a commitment to come earlier. Still no word at this point. Where is the current concern level for you, Kenny?
It's not high. I think that I think Memphis fans and fans of college basketball in general need to realize, I think, that this is not high school recruitment, right? Like we're not talking about high school recruitment anymore. We're talking about basically semi-professional guys who have been playing college ball for multiple years that are looking at this as not a recruitment, but more of a contract negotiation at this point. And so I think it is one of those things where you're not going to have those rash of signings like you do when you're recruiting high school players. I'm not necessarily concerned about it. I think that I think Arthur Kaluma is weighing his options, and people that I've talked to, people that are involved in this whole process, I don't think they're concerned either. But I definitely expect something to shake down soon, hopefully.
Yeah. I've heard a few other schools mentioned, maybe not as major contenders, but I've heard Illinois thrown out there. I've heard going back to Creighton thrown out there. I've heard
going back to K-State.
Yeah, or no, going back to Creighton, not Kansas State. I've heard.
Oh, I think Kansas State's still
Are
involved.
they okay? Yeah, going back to Kansas State, I've heard Kansas as well. So, of course, there are going to be schools involved. Arthur Kaluma is a high level transfer, but I don't think it's time to freak out yet. Just because Memphis didn't get that immediate commitment after it came out that they were, in the lead for him or the favorites to land him, it's not anything to be concerned about. Like you said, it's just you take your time to make these decisions because this could be the difference between him going to the NBA after next year or catching another holdup and not being able to make that jump yet. So it's a big decision for him, not only for the future, but then also you talk about negotiating, you talk about contract, like NIL wise as well, making the best decision, not only now off of fit, but also off of where's the money, right? And that's just part of it now.
It's the reality of college sports at this point.
100%. But I'm not concerned at the moment. We know this stuff can change overnight, of course, but like right now, Monday, still feel good about Memphis and Arthur Kaluma. But just to project out, just to take a look at it and say, what if, worst case scenario, Arthur Kaluma does not end up at Memphis? Memphis doesn't make any more major, like big minute, high upside additions that will play a big role this year. Let's say what Memphis has on campus right now, and maybe a couple like future piece additions, kind of like Baraka Koji type players that maybe are longer term players. If this is the core that Memphis has, give me your position group or player or however you want to break it down that you're the most confident in and the least confident in if Arthur Kaluma ultimately does not end up at Memphis.
Yeah, I think in terms of most confidence, whether Arthur Kaluma plays for Memphis or not, I was always going to say it's the backcourt, right? Whether it's the backcourt of Tyrese Hunter and PJ Haggerty. I think you've got two guys who are legitimately guys that have won, specifically in Tyrese Hunter, that have played high level college basketball and been successful at everywhere he's gone. Right. You've got a guy in PJ Haggerty who is kind of that prototypical big guard that Penny likes to utilize, right? Like he's a big guard who can handle the ball, who clearly caught the eye of a lot of different teams. And the fact that Memphis got him in first, like I think that is a when PJ Haggerty committed to the Tigers, he was the first transfer portal commit for the University of Memphis in the offseason. That to me felt completely different from the previous years of Penny kind of working in the portal, right? Where you remember last year, it was Nick Jourdain. Nick Jourdain was the first guy who committed, and it was like, okay, that's a great piece, right? Like that's a decent piece for Memphis. It's you kind of see what they're trying to build. Like he's a glue guy. Is he gonna be one of your most impactful, most efficient players? I think a lot of fans who had watched Temple were like, man, maybe he's decent, but I loved his game. I was like, this is a low key, a big get for Memphis. But obviously Nick Jourdain is not going to move the needle a ton when it comes to like wins and losses for the Tigers. Them getting PJ Haggerty this year first was a needle mover to the highest degree, I think, in terms of what the kind of expectations for this team. And so I would suspect that even with the David Jones not returning to the program, staying in the draft, I am still as comfortable and confident about this team because of PJ Haggerty and because of Tyrese Hunter. In terms of weakness, depth, maybe just off the bench depth. I think not having David and not, if they don't land Arthur Kaluma, not having Arthur Kaluma, I think then depth becomes an issue. But I would also counter that and say we probably won't be hearing over the season, why is Penny playing 12 players, right? Like, why is he playing 10 players? Like, shorten his rotations. Well, now it's kind of forced to if they don't have the horses off the bench to be able to come in and produce. So I think maybe bench depth is where I would be most concerned, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing for a Penny Hardaway team.
No, and I can basically rinse and repeat with the strength of the roster, and I don't think anyone's going to disagree with that. It's kind of the obvious point, and I don't even think you can really make a counterpoint to it as far as but I mean you can like what they have in the front court with Tyreek Smith, Musa Cisse, Dane Deja, Nick Jordan. Like you can like what they have in those guys, but it's not going to match up with the firepower of Tyrese Hunter and PJ Haggerty, and also Colby Rogers as well in the backcourt. I think the biggest area of weakness if they don't land Arthur Kaluma is at the wing position, at the four. Like they don't have anyone that you feel like overly confident about that is that, long 6'6", 6'7", 6'8" guy that can play defense, that can score in multiple ways. Like they don't have that. Now, can they shapeshift somebody into that position? Can they play a bigger guard at the 3? Can they play a smaller 4 at the 3? Yes, but as far as having like a true game-changing wing, they don't have that without Arthur Kaluma. That to me would be the biggest weakness because you're missing a big piece. Because at this point, with David Jones not in the fold, like Arthur Kaluma is that guy that they're kind of putting all their eggs in one basket on and saying this guy's going to come in and fill this role, play big minutes, and do what he's done throughout his career, be able to be an effective scorer offensively, and be able to do multiple things, guard multiple positions, and be kind of a chess piece defensively as well. So I think the strength is kind of a no-brainer, but you can go different directions with the weakness. And if you don't get Arthur Kaluma, then what do you really have as far as a true wing goes?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously, you look for a team and you look for like kind of prototypical sizes for each position. And I would say, more than likely if David had returned, he would have probably played the 3 position on this roster. And he's 6'3", 6'3.5", right? But I mean, in terms of talent, he's a much bigger talent, a much, more effective, ball scorer. But you got a guy like Colby Rogers, who I think if Penny had his way and had his, had his dream roster for this next year, I think Colby was a guy that would have come off the bench, and backed up either David Jones or Arthur Kaluma. But if obviously you don't have David, if you don't get Arthur, then clearly it looks like Colby would have to come off the bench and start. You're talking about a guy who has played multiple years of college basketball and been incredibly effective and efficient wherever he's gone. And so you're talking about adding a high volume, high efficiency 3-point shooter into the lineup. And that's good. Like that's what you need. But then what you do then is you struggle with, okay, well, someone's got to rest at some point, right? Like someone's got to, what if foul troubles or even injuries, God willing, that doesn't happen. But you look at, I don't necessarily get all that bent out of shape in college basketball about size issues, especially on the wings, because, the way that defenses are played and the way that you can scheme out defenses, you can kind of hide players just like they did with Tyler Harris a few years ago, right? You can kind of hide dudes on defense, but I think definitely that should be a concern. But look at, I mean, no offense to this guy, but Jaquan Walton was the prototypical 3. And when he came, I mean, struggled mightily doing what he doing, playing that role. And anyway, so I definitely think that the strengths are pretty clear what this team is. I do think not getting David out of the draft and then potentially not having Arthur Kaluma on this roster definitely, does it lower the ceiling for you in terms of like expectations for this team?
Yeah, it has to. I think pretty naturally it does. Just what he, like I kind of said, what he offers, his versatility on both sides of the floor, and to me, really filling that final piece. Because yes, can you mask certain players with who you put around them on the floor and the way that you have your rotations and lineups set up, absolutely. But how much better is it when you don't have to do that? Like when
Right.
you don't have to have someone playing out of position, or when you're not asking someone to make up for slack, whatever that, if it's based on defensive ability or size or whatever the case may be. It's a whole lot easier if you just have that piece and you don't have to cover for it. So I think, yeah, the overall upside definitely goes down. It's not as high without him because he fills a role that they need to have filled that they don't have.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you this. Penny mentioned this in the first. They're doing that Tiger Tours or Tiger Tales Tours or whatever, and they did their first meet and greet out in Collierville, and they were asking about Nick Jourdain. Fans were asking about Nick, and Penny said that he expects to see Nick play at the wing position, the 3,
Right. Yeah,
a little bit.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that? Like, is that a wise move? Do you think Nick could his game could translate? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't hate it. I think that's something that he experimented with last year, and it wasn't ineffective. Like it worked fine. So it's kind of one of those things. Once again, that if that's the necessity, if that has to happen, like if Nick Jourdain is your starting 3, then I think you're okay. Like I don't think it's going to be this massive hole that causes Memphis to lose multiple games. But I keep going back to the well of, if you have someone that fits that role and everybody can play in their natural position, and Nick Jourdain is a bit of a tweener because he's not the biggest guy. And so if he does come off the bench and back up someone at the 4, or he comes in off the bench if Arthur Kaluma is there and backs him up at the 3, like you feel better about playing a player out of position if they're not the guy getting the lion's share of the minutes. If it is a guy that's coming in as a rotational guy or coming off the bench, you just feel much more confident in that. So I think he's capable, and I think Memphis will be fine if that's, whether it's Colby Rogers, whether it's Nick Jourdain. Like I think they're fine either way. But I think the ceiling is just raised so much if you have Arthur Kaluma, and that's even past the positional need that I feel that they have there. It's just based off of who he is as a player. Like even if Nick Jourdain had primarily played at the 3 last year and was really solid the whole year, you would still say that Arthur Kaluma raises the ceiling of this team and his abilities. But Kenny, let's transition to football because Memphis football continues to make waves on the recruiting trail. It's honestly pretty incredible. Like even if they don't get any of these guys that came in over the weekend, just the amount of high level talent that they're being able to convince to come on campus in visits is more than it has been, at least over the last several years. I mean, in the time that I've covered Memphis football for whatever it's been now, 5 years, 5, 6 years, whatever it's been, like you just don't see a slew of 4-stars coming in on official visits. It just doesn't happen. So over the weekend, Antwann Hill is obviously like the marquee name, 4-star quarterback, who Florida's been heavily involved with as well, was on campus for a visit. His teammate, 4-star offensive lineman Peyton Joseph, was in for a visit. High 3-star receiver Raheem Hutchins Jr. was in on a visit. 4-star running back and Penn State commit Alvin Henderson was in on a visit, who, by the way, in case you don't know, had 3,500 yards and 61 touchdowns last year and 2,600 yards and 47 touchdowns the year before.
As a sophomore and junior.
Yeah, as a sophomore and junior. Those honestly seem made up, but in his 3-year career, he has 7,274 yards and 132 rushing touchdowns in 3 years. So obviously highly recruited guy in Alvin Henderson as well.
Yeah. So
just running down the list, kind of giving an idea. Peyton Joseph, like I said, teammate at Houston County with Antwann, 4-star offensive lineman in the top 150 in the country, top 10 interior offensive lineman at 6'3", 310. Tell me that's not the kind of size that Ryan Silverfield would love to see. And then, as I mentioned, Antwann Hill, 4-star, top 190, top 200 player, top 15 quarterback in the class, 6'5", 215.
God bless.
Yeah, big dude as well. Raheem Hutchins, mid to high 3-star, depending on where you look, top 400 player. And then Alvin Henderson, the running back that I mentioned, top 150 player, top 10 running back, top 15 player in the state of Alabama. So some really, really big weekend visitors. But let's kind of center this topic of conversation around Antwann Hill because we know, especially for recruiting classes, whether it's a transfer class, whether it's a high school class, it typically all starts and ends with the quarterback. When you get a quarterback locked in, they're usually your biggest recruiter,
like your centerpiece of your class.
Yeah,
right?
they're the centerpiece of your class, but also they do a really good job of recruiting guys because quarterbacks have more sway than anybody else. So,
I got you. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Whether it's a teammate, whether it's guys they play with in 7-on-7, whether it's guys that they in the same district or same county as that they've played against each other their whole lives, starting in Pee Wee football, and they just have mutual respect for each other. Quarterbacks are just really good at recruiting typically. So it's a big reason why Peyton Joseph was on campus, and he's a top 10 interior offensive lineman in the country. So Antwann Hill.
We get into, I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Before we get into Antwann Hill, I wanted to kind of take a step back and look at the Memphis Tiger program for 1 second. Have you ever seen, does it not kind of feel that one of the things that we know about Ryan Silverfield is that he has always been, since he's been at Memphis as an assistant, as now as the head coach, he's always been very effective at bringing players in, guys that are high quality players, guys that feels like he wins the offseason quite often, right? Like I think 3 of the top 5 most highly ranked classes of all time at Memphis are all 2 years ago, last year, and this year, right? But this one feels a little bit different. Does it feel different to you?
Yeah, I mean, he's playing with a different hand. I mean, as bad as it may sound, like since the NIL era, Memphis has almost been recruiting with one hand tied behind their back, just with not that there was no resources. That's not what I'm saying, but this is a different level. This allows you to operate on a very similar playing field to some of the bigger programs in the country.
And you're seeing it play out in the recruiting, right? Look who Antwann Hill is between him and it's between Memphis and Florida.
Yeah.
Like, when is the last time did you ever expect to have Memphis going head to head against a high level SEC program for a quarterback?
No. And I mean, his other visits that he has locked in are like Texas A&M and Duke. And so for Memphis to be in that conversation, it's like, And we know the biggest reason why. Like it just makes sense. And me and Gabe talked about it last week on his show on 92.9. He asked me about it and was like, obviously FedEx, NIL is playing a part in this. But here's my point, and this to me is very important. I think we'll see it more and more over the coming years. If these smaller schools, if these non-Power 5 schools are able to get the same NIL funding and same NIL collective money, not even necessarily the same, but just in the same range where they can be decently close in their offers, then I think we're going to see more, especially big-time quarterbacks, go to smaller schools. Now, how does that make sense? Why does that make sense? Okay, you think about Antwann Hill. If he was to come in this year, Seth Hennigan's gone. Like,
this is last year.
This is last year. So who's he really competing with? Arrington Maiden. Couple other guys that were way lower recruited than him. And that's not to say that players can't get on campus and develop and turn into something that not everyone expected. I mean,
Seth Hennigan is a perfect choice.
Example.
Yeah, he's a perfect example of that. Yeah.
But you look at the opposite of that. If he was to go to Florida, who just got DJ Lagway, who is a 5-star quarterback,
right?
It just makes sense because all these big Power 5 schools, every year pretty much, they're gonna have a linchpin quarterback in their class, whether that's a mid to high 4-star or a 5-star guy. They're gonna have that every single year.
Yeah,
and it's like it just makes sense on paper. If I can make similar money going to a smaller school, if we're splitting hairs with money, but now I can potentially start as a true freshman or redshirt freshman, versus a redshirt sophomore, redshirt junior with all these other quarterbacks in front of me, it makes sense. Like
and let's not forget a major piece of it too. Now, if I choose wisely, I have the opportunity to play in the college football playoffs with the at-large bid, the G5 at-large bid.
And you used to be able to negative recruit with that. You used to be able to say, well, Memphis or whoever, like
you're playing for an AAC title, bro. That's all you got.
Right. And you might go to a New Year's Six Bowl, but playoff is not going to happen.
Right.
And now with so not even only with the group of 5 bid, but also with it being 12 teams, like it's not like there's a rarity for a group of 5 team to be ranked in the top 12.
Right.
So it opens up the floodgates in that respect as well. So not only can you actually genuinely compete for a national championship now, you can start early, you can make similar money, and you can be like the guy.
That's a winning. You talked about a one hand, like winning with one hand. That's 2 hands, baby.
Right.
That is a recruiting pitch that I think we're seeing Ryan Silverfield flourish with right now.
Yeah. And like I said, I think that's a trend that we could see become more and more popular over the coming years, because just if you look at it on face value, it makes sense. Like it just makes sense. And I think I used the example of Tennessee with Gabe. They have Nico Amliava right now, who was the number 1 or number 2 quarterback 2 years ago, depending on where you look. So he's currently a redshirt freshman. They have a mid to high level, depending on where you look, 4-star quarterback in this current class in Jake Merklinger. And then in the 2025 class, they have another 5-star quarterback in George McIntyre. And it's just like, where does playing time come from here?
Yeah. What am I doing here?
How am I getting on the field? Like, where's my path to be able to get on the field? But at a group of 5 schools like Memphis, you don't see quarterback rooms that are absolutely stacked and loaded with 4 or 5-star guys like that. Like you look at Ohio State every year, they have 3 to 4 high 4-star or 5-star guys in their quarterback room. And you see guys transfer from there all the time that never end up breaking through. And it's at most of the bigger schools in the country, you see that. At group of 5 schools, you don't see that. Like behind most starters at group of 5 schools, there is not someone waiting in the wings that has been crowned as the next guy. So I think it's just a natural progression of this current landscape of college football. It could be totally wrong, but to me, at least, on paper, it makes sense.
Absolutely. So Antwann Hill, like, what do you know about Antwann in terms of his game? I admittedly haven't seen a whole lot of footage of him, but what do you know about his game?
Yeah, I think you start with the size. I mean, he has prototypical size, 6'5", 215 to like 225, depending on where you look. But yeah, he's a big-bodied guy. He has a very, very talented, very strong arm, and is able to really reach everywhere on the field. And decision-making wise, he's very good. He's very accurate. He doesn't throw a lot of interceptions over the last 2 years. This past season, completed 65.1% of his passes, 2,700 yards, 31 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. And 2 years ago, he had a 70.5% completion percentage with 3,600 yards, 40 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions as a sophomore. So he's extremely accurate. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He can reach every level of the field. Big, strong, like prototypical quarterback build. So there's a lot to like about him. And you say, okay, what does he profile at if he goes to Georgia or Florida or any of these big schools? And with these level guys, it's always hit or miss. Most of the time, it feels like a 50-50 shot of, does he make it or does he end up 2-3 different schools? And the level of competition as well. But you come to Memphis and you just have, to me, you have a much better opportunity of making it quicker. Like he could probably come in and start at worst case scenario as a redshirt freshman and potentially as a true freshman and make that kind of impact, similar to the way that Seth Hennigan did from day one.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. I think, obviously, like you said earlier, when you recruit one of those high level quarterbacks, those guys are usually, if they do commit, end up being one of your best recruiting tools, for the other part of the class. And we're seeing that with his high school teammate, Peyton Joseph, coming 4-star interior lineman, huge monster kid. What did you think? It was kind of crazy, man. So like we saw, there's just like some fun little stuff that came out over the weekend as they were here. Did you see the pictures on you're not even on social media, so I know you didn't see them.
I am on there.
You are on there. You just low key. You just kind of
very lightly these days. Very lightly.
Were you a little bit surprised to see the level of swag that Memphis set him up in the hotel? Compared to Florida?
I wouldn't say I was surprised by that because, I mean, of course, that's what Memphis is going to do. They're going to roll out the red carpet.
Yeah.
But I was a little bit surprised to see Florida not showing as much.
Looked like he was in a college dorm, honestly.
It was a little different than I was expecting. But, I mean, it just shows you, like, he's going to be more valued at Memphis than he is at Florida. And that's because at Florida, getting a player of that caliber is kind of a dime a dozen. But at Memphis, I mean, you don't get guys like that, especially quarterback prospects like that. So they're gonna throw everything at him to try to get him.
Did you see that Quavo from the Migos got involved?
Yeah, and Moneybag.
And Moneybag got involved.
Yeah, I think Quavo tagged Moneybag and was like, "Take care of him" or whatever like that.
Take care of Peyton. Take care of Antwann.
It doesn't hurt. Guys. It doesn't hurt. I promise you that.
To have Moneybag Yo. So I was reading. Someone in our Discord was talking about it, saying that Moneybag Yo is actually pretty involved with the Memphis football program. That he's actually engaged with them.
I didn't know that.
Isn't that crazy though? Like that's kind of wild. I love that.
It is, but. Yeah, no, it does. It's cool. I know it's cool for fans to see that, but it definitely doesn't hurt recruiting wise as well.
No, man.
All right, Kenny, let's move it on. Let's take a quick break. And then on the other side, we're going to get to the hot three, talk a little NBA, talk a little UFC as well. So quick break. We'll be back on the other side with hot three.
All right, we've talked in recent weeks about how much love and pub the Tigs have been getting as the G5 favorite to make the college football playoff. Fellas, it's time to be humbled a little bit. First edition of the 2024 FPI rankings came out today. We are currently not even the favorite percentage-wise to make the playoffs, chance percent to make the playoff by FPI. It is the UTSA Roadrunners with just over a 15% chance to make it. FBI, as of today, is projecting us to go about 8-4, 7.8 and 4-6 as our official record.
That would be a rough season for Ryan Silverfield.
I don't know. It's a little weird to me because typically success follows wherever the best quarterback is. And I've yet to hear a quarterback's name that is better than Seth.
Tune in to Tigers Untapped with TJ Willis and Trey Lasley every Wednesday at 3 p.m. on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
We're looking at making sure that the Grizzlies are top 5 in either offense or defense. So how do you get a team like that there? What are your must-haves to be a real title contender? So give me one.
Health.
Okay.
I think it's like it goes like a little bit sort of in the cliche obvious department. You got to be healthy, which we saw like the direct results of what happens when you're not this year, right? Like It was a mess in 100 different ways. So there you go. Number one. I've got plenty more loaded for you.
All right. Mine is going to be good kitty. No, I'm kidding.
First off, pause. Pause.
Come hang out with Daniel Greer and Nathan Qualls on Grizz 901 Live. Every Tuesday night at 9:01 live on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
Let's go. go, man. Now I don't have to worry about, is it loud? Is it too loud for you? I'll turn it down.
I don't think anybody will be able to hear us.
Oh, I'm going to turn it down just a little bit more. Hey.
There we go.
Listen, you know what I miss the most about the studio? Not only getting to see your face in person, I miss the horns.
Yeah, we don't have that anymore.
I miss that. But hey, I wanted to announce really quickly for everybody who is paying attention. You saw the Grizz 901 commercial in the commercial break. They are going to be hosting a live draft lottery show the first night of the draft. I think it's the 28th or the 29th. We're going to be doing a massive kind of watch party, paying attention to the draft picks, talking about the players. We're going to have a couple of draft specialists on. It's going to be a dope time. Check it out. You'll start seeing some stuff come out in the next couple of weeks about it. But yeah, it's going to be fun. Draft show, Bluff City Media's YouTube channel. It'll be on Twitter. You'll see it all. We'll be on there having a good time. Cool. All right, you ready? You want to get to the hot three? Let's do this hot three. Hold on, my phone's ringing.
Nice.
I'm gonna deny the call. It's Anthony saying, tell him to stop calling. Does he not know that I'm recording on the Bluff right now?
I guess not.
All right, let's get to the hot three. First topic is the NBA Finals. Is this over? Is Boston's up 2-0? Is it over?
Unless Kyrie Irving comes to life, then yes, it is over. Because
man,
what they've been able to do is let Luka get his. He's had 30 plus in game 1 and game 2, and they have just frustrated Kyrie. They have not allowed him to do what he's been doing throughout the playoffs and throughout his career, really in big moments, and it has completely halted Dallas overall. And they were more competitive in game 2. Game 1 was not competitive, was not a close game at all. And I guess if you're looking at positives for Dallas, you can say that they made it an interesting, closer game in game 2 with Kyrie still not playing to the level that we're used to seeing.
Yeah.
But I mean, what really points to him coming out of this? And I don't even necessarily think it's like Kyrie's in this slump in the finals. I think Boston's just doing a really good job of frustrating him, keeping people in his face at all times. We talked about whatever it was last week or 2 weeks ago when we previewed the finals. I think it was last week. Having the perimeter defenders that the Celtics have, and it's paying off because you're not going to stop Luka Doncic, just like most of the great players in today's NBA. Like you don't stand much of a chance at stopping or slowing down those guys. But if you can stop the Robin to the Batman, and you kind of shut that well off, he can't win games by himself. Even if he is scoring 30 plus a game, he can't win games by himself. So the Celtics have done a great job defensively, specifically on Kyrie Irving, and kind of shutting down their 1-2 combo, and they're up 2-0.
Yeah, I think for me it was been so interesting is seeing. I think we're finally seeing why they got Kristaps on that team on the Boston Celtics.
Yeah,
like he's basically an unguardable player at this point. Right? Like, what do you do with him? And there definitely seems to have been a switch. I think one of the things that Kristaps has always been kind of critiqued about is his willingness to play through injury, his toughness. Maybe like when he's on, he's one of the most unicorn players that's ever put on an NBA uniform. But I think all of those questions are kind of being answered in this series. Like he came out after missing the entire playoffs, basically. Getting healthy again, and has come out and just absolutely dominated the Dallas Mavericks on both ends of the floor.
And also, who was kind of dumping on Giroux last week? Was that you or was that Gabe? Who was like, Giroux ain't really all that? I think it was.
Was it me? Was it me?
Yeah.
Giroux's been playing, man.
Giroux's been playing ball. And here's another thing: if you want to continue to kind of project out over the finals, and if you want to say it's a wrap for Boston, Jason Tatum hasn't went over 20 points in either of these two games, and he hasn't looked great. But Boston is still taking care of business at home in those two games without him doing what he typically does.
He hasn't needed to. He hasn't needed to do that.
Right. And I understand that, but also him shooting 6 of 22 It's just not going to happen that many times. So,
Right.
no, he hasn't needed to. But you're not going to hold Jason Tatum down for a whole series. He's not going to shoot 6 of 22 every night. And if you can't win with him doing that, then the odds are, and more than likely, you can't beat them if he is performing at the level that we're accustomed to him performing. Right. So does it look over? Yeah, it looks over. Boston's really doing to Dallas what I expected Minnesota to be able to do in the conference finals. Right. Obviously, they were not able to do that in the slightest. But Boston's been able to, and it feels like and should be the time that they finally are able to get over the hump and do this with this core that they've had for so many years. And how many times have they been right there on the edge of making this happen? And here they are up 2-0 heading to Dallas. It feels all but over. And you definitely say if they take game 3,
it's over.
It's a wrap.
I think it's so interesting to me because like when coming into the series, I think one of the kind of low-key matchups that kind of swung the series in Dallas in Boston's favor for me is the fact that you have that Boston has Derek White and Drew Holiday as perimeter defenders to guard the two best players for Dallas, and the two best players for Boston don't have to exert the energy that Kyrie and Luka have to on the defensive end of the floor because they have a Drew Holiday and a Derek White. But then you come out in game 2, and not only is Drew locking down players, but he's also scoring 26 points and getting 11 rebounds.
Like, right, leading the team in scoring when that's not what Drew's expected to do, especially with Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Kristaps Porzingis, and Drew scoring 26 and leading Boston in scoring.
I mean, how do you stop that? If you got a guy, what do you do about that? There's really not a whole lot you can. I wanted to ask you this. Do you think the criticism of Jason Tatum has been fair? It's been weird. Or do you feel like it's fair, or has it been kind of a contrived, like media contrived argument to like not seem as if they're just flowering Boston? Because it feels like they're kind of contriving this like thing with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, like who's the best player on the team. And it's like, what do you feel about that?
I mean, that's definitely a media topic of like, is Jaylen Brown actually the best player on Boston now? Like, has he overtaken Jason Tatum? That's kind of that's pretty lame. I would imagine if you sat down with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they wouldn't care. Like they're up 2-0 in the finals right now. It doesn't really matter. Right. Do I personally think Jaylen Brown's overtaking Jason Tatum? No, I do not. Has Jason Tatum weirdly always been like a target for criticism outside of like his first and second year, like when he was 19 years old, going at LeBron I think it was in the Eastern Conference Finals. He's kind of had this.
But so has Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have been targets. Media has tried to break that team up for years, right? Like they can't work together.
And if you want to talk about criticism of Jason Tatum in the final, like in a vacuum for the 2 games that have been playing in the finals so far, I'm okay with that. Because if you're going to be like the elite of the elite, if you're going to be one of the top 5, top 7 players in the NBA, you're going to be a perennial MVP contender and a perennial championship contender, and like you are that dude and supposed to be that dude, then these are the moments when you have to play well. So as far as for like personal legacy or however he's played in the finals, I think criticism is fair. But ultimately, if they sweep Dallas and Jason Tatum doesn't go over 20 points in the whole series, I don't think he's going to care because it's better than him scoring 44 and 45 in the finals or in the Eastern Conference Finals in years past and coming up short.
Which position do you think Luka would rather be in? Scoring 36 points a game and losing, or being Jason Tatum? Being up 2-0. Yeah. I wanted to ask you, this is a much larger conversation, and we haven't talked about this, but do you think that like the NBA goes through these like culture shifts and culture changes where for years it was dominated by the super team, it was dominated by bringing in all these guys, and then it kind of has become, it feels like more of like homegrown, developed talent with the Denver Nuggets, with the Boston Celtics, with hopefully the Memphis Grizzlies next year. Do you also kind of think that maybe the mentality of the superstar has changed a little bit in the NBA. Like Jason Tatum is a legitimate superstar in the NBA.
Yeah.
But it definitely feels like he is not that dude. Like back in Jordan and Kobe's era, it was, I've got to get mine for us to win. And it feels like you got the Jokic's, you got the Jason Tatums, you got all these different guys who are more like, man, I'm going to do whatever it takes for my team to win if it means me not having to get mine all the time. Do you think that's changed? Has that shifted?
I think that is a very nuanced conversation to have, because that is such a case by case and player by player basis conversation. Because are there players that still need to and have to get theirs for their team to win? Yeah, Luka Doncic is one of those examples.
100%.
I think Anthony Edwards is on most nights one of those examples. Like there are still plenty. John Morant's going to be is that guy most of the time. Like there are still obviously plenty of those circumstances. But yeah, I think there are more of those scenarios now where a star elite level player doesn't have to be the best player on the floor every night for that team to win. But I don't think that's anything about the individual players. I think that's more to say about the way that the teams are being built right now in this current era versus the super team era.
Yeah.
Like LeBron, D-Wade, Bosh, like you always knew who the head of that spear was. Like LeBron was always the head of that spear.
He's always the guy.
And now you can have, Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, and Jamal Murray can be the head of that spear on some nights, or Jokic can be the head of that spear on some nights.
Or Michael Porter Jr. can come in and dominate a game, right?
And I think kind of similar vibe for Boston as well. Like Jason Tatum can be that dude. Jaylen Brown can be that dude. Derek White has been that dude at times. Jrue Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis. Like these teams, I think, are built with so much more depth and obviously a lot of young talent in the NBA right now. So I think it's shifted a little bit, but obviously there are still those players that
have to get theirs.
They have to get theirs for the team to be on its at its best.
Before we move on to the next topic, does Boston sweep or does Dallas get one?
Dallas gets one. I'm gonna say Dallas gets 4. Boston wins in 5-4-1. That's where I'm at right now.
Boom. Let's move on. All right. Let's go to the crap show that is the LA Lakers. Obviously, they fired their coach for some reason. I think maybe LeBron had a phone call and said, "Get this mug out of my locker room."
He's now in Minnesota.
Who? No, he's back at Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, not Minnesota. Milwaukee.
Lead assistant at Milwaukee, back to where he was with Budenholzer, even though Budenholzer's over in Phoenix now. But there's been rumors and who's the next guy on the list, and JJ Redick's name was mentioned, Shams Charania. Listen, Memphis media is not the only place where there's insider wars. There was a war this week between Shams Charania and Adrian Wojnarowski about, the JJ Redick story. Shams reports that it's a done deal, and then all of a sudden Adrian comes out and he's like, nope, it's gonna be Dan Hurley. They're talking to him. I think there was a conversation right after the UConn won the national championship this year, and Dan Hurley was like, nah, bro, like I'm staying in UConn. Then all of a sudden it comes out that they're talking to him.
It kind of came out of nowhere too.
Didn't it? Yeah.
And it caught steam quick.
Yeah. Well, he today, as of this recording, announced, nah, I'm staying in UConn to win a third. Now, what does this tell you about the Lakers? And do you think Dan Hurley used the Lakers interview as a way to leverage more money out of UConn?
I can't really speak on that, but what I will speak on is I think Dan Hurley in spades made the right decision.
100%.
Because Dan Hurley's a very strong personality. He's a very, very good basketball coach, obviously. And at the collegiate level, he's got full control over that program at UConn.
Yeah.
And I believe in most scenarios, if Dan Hurley was to go into the pro ranks, he'd be able to run a very tight ship. Like, the dude is good. But going to LA and having to deal with LeBron and having to deal with him competing for the head coaching job, basically, like speaking on LeBron competing for the head coaching job, basically, and feeling like he's entitled to be the head coach and call the shots. Why would anybody that's having the amount of success that Dan Hurley's having do that? I have no earthly idea. Now, obviously, the history of the Lakers. Yes, it would be incredible, I'm sure, for Dan Hurley to go.
And
coach
the money
Lakers.
would be out of this world.
Right.
Right.
But
6-year, $70 million contract was offered to him.
right.
How do you, dude, the balls it takes to turn down $70 million?
It's just not worth it. Nobody wants to deal with LeBron James. Nobody want the coaches that LeBron has had basically for the last 10 years have just been mouthpieces for LeBron James. You know, like they've just been faces for the media pretty much. Right. And I mean, we've heard kind of all the behind the scenes stories of how that goes with LeBron and
right.
Those kind of hardships that have been had between him and head coaches in the past. So I don't understand why Dan Hurley would do it. He's coming off back-to-back national championships. He's the best coach in college basketball right now. He's got it running like a well-oiled machine. Why jump ship and go have to deal with the ego of LeBron and have to compete for a head coaching job with your star player, with a team that really, like, quite frankly, is not going anywhere? You know,
well, once LeBron leaves, they're going to be in developmental mode.
Right.
And
They've mortgaged their future to get the players that they have. It was all a win now mode, which is fine. But why would a coach coming from the college ranks with the success that he's having jump into a pool of this thing could blow up quick? Like this thing
and here's the thing.
Bare bones quickly.
He would be, I think Hurley would be a perfect fit for a rebuilding young team like maybe Detroit, right? Like or a team that, like a Charlotte,
a team that needed culture.
A team that needed culture. But the Lakers have allowed this Hollywood mindset to just infiltrate their entire culture to where their belief system, I think, is that they can just go out and sign whoever they want, whenever they want, however they want, with whatever money they want. And to a large degree, that's kind of true, except for, you know, Adam Silver's done a pretty awesome job of alongside the CBA, basically saying, you know, or the Players Association basically saying, we're going to develop parity. We're going to create a parity in this league. But the Lakers fans and the Lakers front office organization, they don't see it that way. They see it as, we want to be contenders every single year. A guy like Dan Hurley, you bring him into a situation, would he thrive in a developmental situation? Absolutely, because he is a culture guy. He is that dude. But the Lakers wouldn't love him, and they wouldn't stay with it very long. And the Lakers front office, they don't operate in that way. They don't have the longevity that you need to have to rebuild something. They look at it as, we want to fix now, quick.
Yeah.
And that's just not the way that Dan Hurley's going to work. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just doesn't work. So
I agree. So shout out to Dan for saying, all right, Kenny, last topic and let's get out of here.
All right, let's do this. UFC 303 is coming up, I think, at the end of this month, right?
June 29th, I believe.
June 29th, right? Michael Chandler and Conor McGregor are the main event. This fight has been talked about and
2 years
negotiated. Has it been 2 years now? Because I know they coached in the Ultimate Fighter. Was that 2 years ago?
I think so.
They announced it, I think, this year. I think Conor had a bunch of movie stuff he was doing, so then they came back. Did you ever watch? By the way, did you watch?
I've not watched Roadhouse.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's all right. So now he's back. He's training. He's off the whatever
the juice
he was on to get big for that movie. And it was announced 303 that he was going to fight Michael Chandler. Well, then all of a sudden this week, a press conference in Ireland was canceled last minute, day of. Michael Chandler goes to the airport, is told, hold, don't get on the plane just yet. Come back. We'll let you know what's going on. Then they find out it was canceled. And so the rumors have been abounding that the fight is off. Well, now it's on, right?
Yeah.
Like Conor McGregor, it's on. Michael Chandler came out and said, it's on. We're ready to go. Are you excited? Are you as excited about this fight as I am? What are your thoughts about this fight? You're not excited?
No. Yes, I'm excited because anytime Conor McGregor's fighting, like, it's going to have a big, like a Super Bowl feel to it almost. Yeah. But I'm so tired of him. Like, dude, I know you love Conor. I'm so tired of him.
I know you don't think he's that good.
Like, he's not good anymore.
Come on,
he's
man.
washed. Don't even act.
Dude,
Where is your evidence that says he is still a good elite level fighter?
The only thing that I would say that tells me that he is that concerns me is him coming. It's a first fight back from his major injury against Dustin Poirier, right? But let's not forget, Dustin just fought Islam for a title and took him to deep waters, right? Like ultimately getting submitted. But Conor has never not fought anybody that's not top of the food chain. And when has he gotten starched other than by Khabib, right? Like when is he?
Dustin Poirier starched him.
After he broke his leg?
No, the first fight. He knocked him out in the second round.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about the first fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He hasn't won a fight since like 2019.
I mean, I understand that. He's also taken a lot of breaks. So I get that. But when he was in his prime and focused, and that man was a killer.
Yeah, but he's not that guy anymore.
Did you hear what Dustin said after his fight?
What?
He said, they asked him, what do you think, what's going to happen with Michael Chandler and Conor McGregor? And he said, if Conor is back to even close to what he was when he fought me, Michael's going to get knocked out because of the way that Michael fights. He said, you cannot go with these big movements that Michael Chandler has against the Conor McGregor.
I don't disagree with that because Conor has always been a precision striker and Michael Chandler is a bulldog. Like he's going to get in your face and he doesn't care and he will get knocked out. Like he is okay with being knocked out. My thing is I don't know. Could Conor come in and knock him out? Absolutely. But I don't know. I'm just kind of done with the whole Conor McGregor thing. I get it. They're going to make a crap ton of money off of it as they always do every time he fights.
Yep.
But it's just not the same. It's not like it was 5-6 years ago. He made his decision and you can't blame him at all. He made his decision to be a businessman as he should have. I mean, he's made hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in doing so.
Yeah.
But the fact that he's still like talked about, like there are so many casuals that think that he's like the greatest fighter of all time, and he's not even in contention for that. He's not even close.
Yeah,
he's not even close. And so I think that's another of one of my reasons with him is so many casual fans like just act like he is incredible. And yes, was he awesome in his prime? But he's nowhere near one of the greatest fighters of all time.
For those that don't know Christian personally, like I do, Christian he despises the front runner in any sport, right? Like if you're a front runner and you're getting all the media attention and all the love, Christian ain't gonna like you. That's just
if it's not deserved,
right?
If it's not deserved.
Like Patrick Mahomes, you love that dude.
Yeah, I love Patrick Mahomes, but he deserves that.
It's deserved. So this fight card is kind of dope though. Like
it's kind of dope. It kind of sucks.
Well, no, there's a couple of fights that are pretty cool.
But this is what they do for every Conor fight. They basically make it trash.
Yeah, they make it trash because they know people are gonna watch.
Right.
They're already talking how it's gonna break every record they've ever had.
And that's another thing that I hate is that you've got your biggest seller of all time in Conor McGregor,
right? And
he's coming back, and everybody's so excited. But honestly, the card sucks.
There is one fight that I'm really looking forward to.
But there's this. Copy and paste basically anybody else as the main event. This fight would not sell. It would sell. It's UFC, but it wouldn't be like anything. I was like, I've got to watch this. Right. And I just wish with those Conor cards they would go a little bit deeper on those and make them like the event that they're supposed to be and that they're made out to be.
Yeah, I mean, Jamal Hill and Carlos Ulberg.
And that fight was going to be better because it was him and Khalil Roundtree.
Right, that fight was going to be awesome.
That fight was going to be awesome.
I'm a big Khalil Roundtree fan.
Me too.
They got Ian Machado Gary versus Michael Venom Page. That's going to be a fun fight.
That's a fun fight.
Can you believe it, though? Andrei Arlovsky's fighting in the prelims on this card.
He's got to hang it up, man.
Dude is 85 years old. Christian's still fighting.
Got to hang it up.
Yeah. All right, that's the card. I'm excited about the Chandler fight. I just think that whole weight class is just fun to me. I think.
Oh yeah, 55.
Anytime. Yeah, 55 is.
But they're not fighting at 55, right? Fighting at 70.
They're 70. They're fighting at 70. Yeah, that's right. It's gonna be fun. You gonna buy it?
Yeah,
Of course.
of course. Yeah, I watch them all anyway. It doesn't matter who's on the top of the card.
That's a very good point.
But anyway, we appreciate you guys for joining us this week. If you are watching on YouTube right now, you can like, subscribe, and comment there. Excuse my voice at the end of the episode. Kenny's had me talking a lot. If you are listening wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, any other platform, you can do all the same things there as well. You can also head over to bluffcitymedia.co. Check out all the articles, podcasts, videos, and everything else we have to offer here at Bluff City Media. Thank you guys for joining us once again, and we will see you back here next week.
Thank you for listening to On the Bluff. If you enjoyed this episode, also like and subscribe to Bluff City Media's YouTube page. Head over to www.bluffcitymedia.co for comprehensive coverage of Memphis sports and how you can become an insider.